We welcome you back into the FAU football pregame show. Florida Atlantic and Marshall from Learfield IMG College. That comes up out on the 6 o'clock hour. My favorite portion of the pregame is when I get to sit and drink a beer with my guy, Kevin Rolston. KVJ Show 97.9 WRMF. We'll go ahead and get this opened up here. Funky Buddha Brewery, the Floridian Hop Gun. That's what's being sold at FAU Stadium all season long. And, Kevin, we now have a 4-game winning streak for FAU.
Look out.
This is the game that you've been talking about and pointing to since before the season even started. This one here tonight against Marshall. And I think this one now, you're on the verge of sweeping this homestand, going back on the road at 5-2, undefeated in Conference USA, keeping pace with Western Kentucky. And there's something to be said about beating Marshall because it's Marshall, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a good brand. Hopefully it's going to bring some eyeballs out, on Friday night, see exactly what's going on. So if FAU gets a win over Marshall, goes to 5-2, and, people start paying attention.
Yeah.
You're one game away from being bowl eligible, and, things look right with the season. You look like you're more on pace for that 11-3 season that you saw a couple years ago.
Yeah, without question. And last week was ugly, the win over Middle Tennessee State. Chris Robinson had his most inconsistent game of the year.
Sure.
And even despite that, your defense pitches a shutout in the second half. I mean, It was an overwhelming effort in the second half. You've got Malcolm Davidson, who has been a revelation. You've got such a good running back core, those freshmen and those underclassmen back there. That's one of the trademarks of a season. I feel like no matter the team, not just FAU, if you can get through an ugly one and end up winning it fairly comfortably, you're in really good shape.
That's it. It's all about just winning. And you don't know. That is the one thing, as everybody tries to say this team's great and that, you don't know week to week, year to year, what is going on with these kids. You don't know what kind of team you're going to get. So if you can get the consistency and just get away with the win, then especially with where FAU is right now, that's all you need.
Ken Lavicka, Kevin Rolston, two guys in a beer. The Floridian and Hop Gun, that's what's being sold. Funky Buddha Brewery, the official craft beer of FAU Athletics. That's what's at FAU Stadium tonight. Let's talk about college football as a whole, and the marquee game of the night happens in the Big Ten. Your most familiar conference, you being an Ohio State guy, you'll have a keen eye on what's happening Saturday with Penn State and Michigan. Penn State is the favorite in this game, obviously. Michigan, the last couple of weeks, starting to look like maybe they're getting it together a little bit. It's still, in my opinion, a lost season for the Wolverines.
Well, it's just, who they've been doing their statement wins against. I mean, I know
Illinois.
You got Illinois, you got Rutgers in there.
Right.
Those are the teams that are
it's
starting
easy to look better with that.
Yeah, and Michigan needed to get a little bit of confidence booster, but it's nothing where anyone wants to reset the table on what the expectations were on Michigan. I think the expectations still need to be low. The defense can be functional and can be pretty solid. The offense is still a big question mark, and they're not going to take you against, and they've still got obviously Penn State. And I'll tell you, that whiteout environment, which they're saving for Michigan this Saturday night, that is the kind of environment that is worth, typically you get 3 points. That is a 10-point turnaround right there, easily.
I've had multiple people tell me that whiteout game is the single most intimidating college football atmosphere in the country.
I would put LSU at second with what you saw with what Florida had to go through. But when you have that white like that, it is, and it's the largest stadium in America, and it is packed, and they are allowed. That yes, I've seen much better Ohio State teams go in there and look completely frazzled and lost, and it's like the game plan, whatever you had and told those kids before they ran out of the tunnel, it's lost when they see that white.
Penn State's the team that you're concerned most about, right, in the Big Ten, I would have to think.
Wisconsin?
You
Yeah.
think they're better than Penn State?
I do. The defense of Wisconsin is unbelievably great. It's phenomenal. It's right up there with Penn State, and Penn State's offense has been the question. And right now, with the run game of Wisconsin, even their passing game, their quarterback is very solid. I didn't know what they were going to get, but they've got a very solid quarterback in there.
Better than Hornibrook ever was, I feel like.
Absolutely. As far as a complete team, I think Wisconsin is the better team, and Ohio State's going to find out next Saturday. That's a noon game. Ohio State's got Wisconsin at home in the shoe.
And those have been some good matchups over the years. Really, though, more so at Camp Randall than they have been at the Shoe. But I do remember Russell Wilson going down in the final seconds at the Horseshoe his 1 year at Wisconsin. So, that's going to be maybe the Big Ten game of the year.
Number one Buckeye team, too.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And so, and of course, a matchup with Penn State looming. So the Big Ten race is still very, very much in question right now.
Ohio State does have Penn State at home, so no whiteout this year. And then they got Michigan away. But I've been in the Shoe for that game or in the Big House for that game. And it's not that intimidating of an environment.
No, Michigan Stadium really isn't.
It's quiet.
It absolutely is. And it's gotten a little bit louder since they put in the suites around the rim of the stadium and closed it up a little bit. But just the nature of that bowl, I've been to Michigan Stadium several times as a kid when Illinois would go there and get pasted on a regular basis. And I was never impressed. It's like how I feel about Tuscaloosa and Alabama. I've been to Tuscaloosa now, called games there 3 times, and not once have I said to myself, that was a really outstanding college football atmosphere. Give me Nebraska, give me Auburn, give me Georgia. Way more than Tuscaloosa, and certainly more than the Big House.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times it's the attitude of the crowd, but what they're starting to figure out, too, is it's acoustics. And Alton Stadium with Oregon.
Totally is.
Yeah, that is really pointed out because you got a 60,000-seat stadium for Oregon. And that's one of the loudest that's out there, but it's got that shape where it comes up and around and the noise bounces right back onto the field. Makes it tough for the players.
The thing you mentioned with acoustics, I think it plays bigger into college basketball, and I've certainly experienced that. The newer venues in college basketball, none of them get loud at all. Tennessee has, to me, the greatest arena in the country. Their NBA teams wish they had the type of arena that they have at Tennessee, but there's no noise in there. But Rupp Arena, 900-year-old venue, that place, the sound just bounces. It gets super loud in there.
Ohio State, for their basketball program, they are going back and playing more games now at the old arena.
Yeah.
Because it's got that noise in the field.
It's got a home court advantage.
It's a lot more raucous. The newer arena, which is very nice, but the noise gets lost in there.
Well, when FAU went up and beat Ohio State a couple of years ago at the Schottenheim Center, there were 13,000 people in there, and there was no home court advantage whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get back to college football. Ken Lavicka, Kevin Rolston. Again, Kevin, KVJ Show, 97.9 WRMF, weekday mornings, 6 to 10 a.m. This is sort of other than the matchup between Penn State and Michigan, a lighter college football weekend. The only other 2 matchups in the top 25 pitting 2 ranked teams against one another happen in the Pac-12. And we've already established that the Pac-12 is not going to be represented in the college football playoff. Something shocking would have to happen. I know I don't consume much Pac-12 football. I certainly saw USC get a bad run from the officials against Notre Dame last weekend, but I don't consume much of the Pac-12, and I don't find it to be overly entertaining, at least not the last several years. Chip Kelly's Oregon was fun to watch, but I can't get into Utah. I can't get into some of the, I never was able to get into Stanford, but even Stanford's bad now.
Yeah, to me, the team to watch, and this is, I think, a big game with Oregon and Washington coming up this weekend. And I know a lot of people are probably snoozing on it, like we're saying. It's a 3:30 game. But you've got a 5-2 Washington team that's still dangerous. And Oregon, their defense has been looking amazing.
Yeah.
And last week,
that's Mario Cristobal.
Well, 45-3 over Colorado. That's a Colorado team that beat Nebraska. And so not to say that they're juggernauts, Colorado, but they're a good test. And Oregon, that looks more reminiscent of an old Chip Kelly Oregon score than it does what you've been seeing the last couple of years. And so that kind of woke me up a little bit, just seeing what Oregon's able to do. They're now a 5-1 team coming in this, and I know everybody's writing them off. They say there's no way a Pac-12 team gets in, but there's still half a season to play in college football, and you don't know. And when you start seeing like Georgia lose to South Carolina, you get a couple more of those unexpected losses, and then we could be talking about anything, and Oregon could somehow wind up back in the conversation.
I thought a lot about what you said last week about Oklahoma when we were talking about that Oklahoma-Texas game, and you said, hey, what is Oklahoma's defense? We know that offense is going to move the ball. They did as expected against Texas. Jalen Hurts is awesome, avoiding sacks by putting the football behind his back and switching hands. Like, he's just a stud. He's going to win the Heisman. Barring injury, he is far and away going to win the Heisman Trophy. What did you learn, though, about Oklahoma? Did they do enough to convince you that this is a team that is going to be college football playoff ready and maybe make an impact in the Final Four?
It's interesting with Oklahoma because I don't think the offense, to me, I mean, the offense has been solid. Is it the same as what it was last year? 27 points they gave up to Texas. I was impressed, especially in the first half with the defense. I thought it was really good. I think the defense is markedly better. And I think that brings them into the discussion. Yeah, it did. I mean, they showed me what I need to see. I don't know how Oklahoma is not in the college football playoff. I mean, looking at what they have coming up, they're gonna blow by West Virginia.
Yes.
They've got, I mean, what do they got? They've got nothing else coming up. They've got the Baylor game.
Baylor's like the toughest test they have the rest of the year.
It is, yeah. Baylor is it, and that is going to be on the 16th of November. Right now, they're both undefeated. But, you see Baylor struggling with Texas Tech this last week.
Right.
And, it's cute that Baylor's 6-0, but it's not like a solid 6-0.
No, it's not. And, the game against Oklahoma State, like, that's the one that probably you look at and you say, just because it's a rivalry, maybe. But Oklahoma State's not the same team they have had the last 4 or 5 years. They're in a little bit of a young mode right now. They'll be back. But they couldn't even beat Oklahoma when they did have superior teams to this one.
Yeah, that's a home game for Oklahoma State with Oklahoma, old Boone Pickens Stadium. They're going to be playing that. But, I still don't see that. I think Oklahoma's going to run the table. They're going to be undefeated. They're, without a doubt, going ahead and punch their ticket into the college football playoff.
Florida Atlantic and Marshall, a Friday night affair, homecoming in Boca Raton. Kickoff coming up at 6:30 Eastern Time. Ken Lavicka, Kevin Rolston of the KVJ Show, 97.9 WRMF. Again, 6 to 10 a.m. weekdays is when you hear them with Jason in Virginia. To much more pressing matters, Friday game is tricky. And so it requires you to, if you plan it correctly, leave work early. And if you're leaving work early, and I recommend probably like a noon departure, not a 1 or a 2. You don't want to put yourself up against it. Leave at noon. But then that also requires you got to start getting into tailgating football mode pretty soon after that. And so I feel like you set a base, and then you get to the beer, the Funky Buddha Brewery craft beer, pretty quickly. To you, Friday night games, good or bad for the Kevin Rolston consumption of college football?
No, it's fantastic. I mean, you can throw it on an off night like this, on a Friday night where you don't normally get it. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's a great way to kick off the weekend. You wake up the next day, you've got a reason to start drinking again.
That's a great point.
And to rebound, to feel a lot better, and then you got college football on the entire rest of the day. So to start off on a Friday night and blow it out hard tonight at FAU Stadium, and then get up tomorrow and watch what's going to be, a couple good games. Absolutely. Go at it.
And that brings me to this. The Pac-12 in the offseason discussed having some 9 a.m. Pacific time games to cater to the East Coast and get television ratings up. And for me, I'm very selfish. And so the world revolves around the Eastern Seaboard in this country. And so everything should be at a reasonable time, Eastern time. It drives me insane when the NBA Finals, just to cater to the West Coast, start at like 9:15.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, I hate that, especially you.
Sure.
I mean, you're up at 2:45 in the morning.
It's
you don't see any of that stuff. But I would have loved the Pac-12 at 9 a.m. Eastern time, because I just remember in college, you would wake up at 8:45, 9 o'clock, turn on College Game Day, have that 10 a.m. beer. We would call it a 10 a.m. beer.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea for you when you didn't have wife, kids, when it was just Kevin Rolston, him and the boys. What was the normal Saturday starting time?
I lived in California, so I was 3 hours behind. So all my college football action began at 9 a.m. So, we would get up at 8. Yeah. You'd wake your buddies up, and you would start drinking at 9. And the interesting thing, too, in California, they don't really care about college football. It's not that big of a deal.
Correct.
And that blew my mind. I would go into a sports bar, and we'd be the only ones in the sports bar. And
hardcore Ohioan.
Oh, we would take over the sports bar, and we would just absolutely own it. And then people couldn't figure out why Saturday nights when we'd show up to the club, why we were so hammered. Be like, did you guys start drinking at 9? Like, yes, we did.
Actually,
we did start drinking at 9. Yeah, that's why we're so blasted at 9 p.m.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, for sure. That was 9 a.m. was really sort of the start time. And so anybody who's listening who may be college age or is at FAU, this is a great thing because you tailgate, you see the game. This is the premier game of the weekend in Conference USA happening tonight at FAU Stadium. Then wake up tomorrow 9 a.m., throw on game day, and you start your whole Saturday again. I love it.
Absolutely, yeah. You drink today, you go to the game tonight. You can still go out, whether you're going to the Cove, the Ave, or wherever you're going to be going. You can make it happen. You get up tomorrow, you start drinking again. It's going to be a great weekend.
Kevin Rolston, you were just on it. Like you've got everything planned out. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And then you've got, if you like a local flavor, you got the Canes at noon against Georgia Tech at Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah.
And then you can watch the Dolphins on Sunday. So, I'll let you figure out.
Did the Dolphins win a game this year?
I'm starting to think no.
They got the Bengals coming up.
They do have the Bengals on the schedule, but they also had the Redskins on the schedule and lost that game. So
my point.
They're not beating the Bills. They're not beating the Bills this weekend. Win number 1 is not happening this weekend.
No.
When you're daunted, when the Bills seem like a daunting proposition, that's probably a major issue.
Right. When you say that's a no-win.
When there's no chance you're winning that game, that's definitely a problem. Kevin Rolston, thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Cheers, my friend. Kevin Rolston, KVJ Show, 97.9 WRMF, 6 to 10 a.m. weekday mornings. I'm Ken Lavicka. 2 Guys and a Beer, brought to you by Funky Buddha Brewery. More FAU pregame to come. Match up with Marshall coming up 6:30. It's Florida Atlantic football from Learfield IMG College.